This video will show you how to complete the supplier transaction flow system on your Klarmans dashboard. Completing the supplier transaction flow system will ensure the right invoice is received from your supplier, the invoice is recorded accurately in your Klarmans dashboard, you are easily notified if the invoice is outstanding or has been paid, the payments made to the supplier are matched with the supplier's invoice, and a remittance confirmation statement is sent to the supplier. The supplier transaction flow system consists of 5 separate steps. The first step is to record the supplier invoice in your Klarmans dashboard. For this step, you will need the invoice from your supplier. To begin with, log in to your Klarmans dashboard. Under the Suppliers section, select the Supplier Invoices tab. This is the second tab in the menu on the left. Once selected, this will display the following screen. Enter the supplier's invoice details, starting with selecting the supplier's account from the drop-down menu. Note down the auto-generated transaction reference number on the actual invoice, as shown here. Enter the supplier's invoice number here, followed by the invoice date. Next, allocate the purchase to the specific general ledger account. For example, materials purchased for resale would go to account 5000 materials purchased. Enter the net amount of each item purchased displayed on the supplier's invoice, and click on Add Item to record the purchase, and then repeat for the next item. Carry on entering each purchase item as needed, and make sure to click on Add Item after entering each purchase item. Also make sure the VAT on the invoice is recorded to the VAT default account of 2200. Once all the items from the invoice have been entered, make sure the subtotal, VAT, and invoice totals shown here accurately match what's displayed on the supplier's invoice. If needed, enter a memo or a note relating to this invoice in the memo box. Finally, have a quick check and then click on Enter Invoice to record this supplier's invoice. The next step in the supplier transaction flow system is the reconciling of the supplier's statements to the invoices entered. For this step, you will need the supplier statement. A supplier statement is a statement of all the transactions with a supplier during a set period, which is usually a month. The supplier should forward you a monthly statement showing all the invoices issued during that month. Select the Supplier Transaction Inquiry tab from the menu, which is the 5th tab found under Suppliers. Select the supplier account from the drop-down menu. Set the From and To date range to match the supplier statement, and then click on Search. This will display all the transactions for the supplier between the selected date range. Next, carefully cross-tick the invoices, credit notes, and payments exactly as they appear in the statement, with the transactions displayed. This will ensure all the transactions have been correctly entered in your Klarmans dashboard. If any found not to be entered, you can enter them from the supplier invoices or the supplier credit note options, and once entered, return to this step. Once all the transactions on the supplier statement have been matched, for good practice, note an R mark on the bottom right of the statement. This is to indicate for future reference that this particular statement has been reconciled and the date it was reconciled. The third step in the supplier transaction flow system is the allocation of the credit notes. For this step, you will need the supplier credit notes. A credit note is issued from a supplier usually when there is an incorrect order, or the items purchased were faulty or damaged and had to be returned. Similar to how supplier invoices are entered on your Klarmans dashboard, the supplier credit notes are entered from the supplier credit note option, which is the third option in the menu. To begin with, select the supplier account from the drop-down menu. Note the transaction reference number on the credit note. Enter the supplier's credit note number or reference here. Enter the credit note date in the date field. Select the general ledger code for which the credit is given. For example, if it is a refund of materials, then select account 5000, materials purchased. Enter the net amount of the credit and then select Add Item to record the item. Repeat this for all other items which are being credited by the credit note. Make sure any VAT charged on the credit note goes to the VAT default account 2200. Once all the items have been entered, ensure the subtotal, VAT and credit note total displayed on the bottom right of the screen match accurately what is displayed on the credit note. If you wish, you can add a memo or a note relating to this credit note in the memo box. Finally, have a quick check to see if everything looks okay, and then click on the Enter Credit Note option to record the transaction. Once the credit notes are entered, they need to be allocated against the supplier's invoice. This is done from the Allocate Payment and Credit Notes option, which is the fourth option in the left menu under Suppliers. Once clicked, the following screen will appear. This screen displays all the unallocated payments and credit notes for suppliers. Select the supplier account from the drop-down menu. Then select the Allocate icon located next to each credit note. Once the Allocate icon is clicked, the following screen will appear. This lists all the outstanding invoices that have either not been paid or a payment or credit note has not been matched against. The amount of the credit note being allocated will appear at the top of the screen. To allocate the credit note amount against an invoice, simply click on the Pay button, which appears next to each invoice. Repeat this process for all the invoices being matched against the credit note. Once the full amount of the credit note has been allocated against each invoice, the total amount allocated and any balance left to allocate will be shown at the bottom of the screen. Make sure the left to allocate amount at the bottom of the screen is 0, confirming the full amount has been allocated. Once the allocation is complete, select the Process button. Now the credit note has been allocated. Repeat this process for any other credit notes which are still showing as unallocated. The fourth step in the supplier transaction flow system is the matching of the supplier payments against the invoices. For this, go to Payments to Suppliers option, which is the first option in the menu found under the Suppliers area. This will display the following screen. First, select the supplier to whom the payment is made from the drop-down menu. This will display all the outstanding or unpaid invoices relating to that particular supplier. Next, select the bank account from which the payment is being made, for example the current account or the petty cash account. If paying by BACS, direct debit, or an online transfer, note this in the reference box here. If paying the supplier by check, enter the full check number. Enter the date of the payment. Then click on the Pay button next to each of the invoice being paid. This will move the amount from the balance outstanding column to the allocated column. Once the necessary invoices have been allocated as paid, the total amount of the payment will appear as amount of payment at the bottom of the screen. If you wish, you can add a memo or a note to this particular payment in the memo box. Once the total payment has been allocated fully, click on Enter Payment to record this supplier payment. The final step in the supplier transaction flow system is the generating of the remittance statement and emailing it to the supplier. The supplier remittance statement ensures the correct invoices have been matched and paid. The supplier is informed via email that a payment has been made. It automatically updates your dashboard, separating the paid and unpaid invoices. It also ensures no invoices are paid twice or duplicated. Once the payment has been matched against the invoices, as explained in step 4 above, the following confirmation screen will appear. By clicking on Print this remittance, the remittance statement will load up. This will show the name of the supplier, a list of all the invoices paid, and the total amount paid. By clicking on Email Remittance, an email window will appear. This will include the email of the supplier, registered in the Manage Suppliers area of the dashboard. You could add a second email in the CC window. The subject field will be pre-selected with the order reference. The text in the email window will be pre-filled. However, you could add or edit the text as needed. The remittance statements just viewed will be attached to the email as an email attachment. And finally, clicking on Send will send the email and the remittance statement to the particular supplier. A confirmation will be displayed once the remittance has been emailed successfully to the supplier. If the email wasn't sent, it usually means that an email address is not registered for this particular supplier. So please ensure an email address is allocated to each supplier. This can be done via the Manage Suppliers section present in the Suppliers menu. Now, all 5 steps of the supplier transaction flow system have been completed. Please ensure to use this tutorial for your future reference whenever entering transactions relating to suppliers on your Klarmans dashboard.